Okay, so I'm serious about this, Greg. We're going to look at a 10-minute lightning round here. You can see that the clock is starting right now. Okay, so it's starting. So we have two big stories really that we're going to focus on in this 10 minutes. And so I put out my three big stories, which was really eight. And then Greg tagged me and he was saying, hey, what about this and what about that? And so we're going to add some nuance here to two big stories. So the first is that there was this NBC story where Trump is saying he's pissed because Putin's not coming to the table. How is it being viewed from what you saw in Russia? Like, tell me about that. And then the second one is the Daily Mail, where there's this thing about a third term or a fourth term for Putin. Or sorry, for President Trump, kind of like what was going on with Putin. I said it's a nothing burger, but tell us how Russia is seeing it. Go.
Okay, so thank you for that, and looking forward to this lightning round. It's really two big stories because honestly, I was going to take a rest day with my family today, and then I messaged Prof and said, "Dude, we got to talk about this for just a couple of minutes." Here we have it. So we have two big stories.
One
The
minute.
We have two big stories, and let's look at the third term story. This morning, first, Daily Mail put out this headline because many times Prof and I are always trying to wonder why so many narratives are running, and then we start to send headlines to each other and we try to understand so we can be more factual. So Daily Mail came out with the headline, Trump potentially finds a way, loopholed in the Constitution, actually is the quote, to secure a third term. And then I sent it to Prof and he says, oh yeah, it's just, this is what, just gets the pot
I said
boiling.
this is nonsense.
Correct. But then this is what happens. NBC ran a similar article this afternoon. So now we have UK
And
Daily
that's
Mail.
because of what Trump said afterwards, kind of inflaming it. Go ahead.
Okay. So when that happens, what I try to bring to the table in perspective, if we're talking specifically about Ukraine and Russia, the war in Ukraine, it is the priority. I like to go immediately when these shock stories happen, like Greenland or Canada or Panama Canal, and go read Ukrainian media and Russian media, not just propaganda, but media, analysts. And I am blown away that today, even though it is not apples to apples, Russia and Ukraine are actually in agreement because the narrative, and I'll throw this back to you and then I'll tell you what they're in agreement about. It's just like there's a possibility that JD Vance could be elected. I come in his device and then he just hands the power back over to me. So, I mean, this is your ballpark.
That's absolute nonsense. Anybody who's getting wound up by that, there's plenty of other things to get wound up by. This is nothing, and it's nothing being reported by the Daily Mail, and then Trump will add fuel to the fire because he's in command of the attention economy. That's all he's trying to do is get himself to be the story, and so he adds just says a few lines about it that make it like, oh, even he's saying this, right? It's nothing's going to happen constitutionally. He can't. The end of the story. It's not going anywhere. But in Russia, they're spinning it differently.
And Ukraine. And unfortunately, in other parts of the world as well, when journalists or influencers or media grab a hold of just the headline and they do not have your background, your PhD is in the Constitution. So
Well, my dissertation was on the
dissertation,
Constitution.
I'm
Yeah,
sorry, in the
yeah.
Constitution, the Constitution of the United States. It's not possible. It's not going to happen. But everyone doesn't have your background and expertise on this. So Russia and Ukraine are both today, unbelievably, you may say, how are they agreeing on anything? They're agreeing on this, that it's the wrong narrative. First of all, Ukraine doesn't like the narrative, even if it's wrong, but just because it's being suggested, because it is a mirror image, not apple for apple, for what Vladimir Putin did early in his reign, we'll call it. He was the president. His prime minister was Dmitry Medvedev. They switched. Dmitry Medvedev went to the office of president for 4 years. Vladimir Putin went to prime minister for 4 years. And then they flipped again. Medvedev went to another branch of government office, and President Putin went back to the presidency, and he's been there ever since and will be there for
And
the
then they
foreseeable
changed the
future.
Constitution
And
to allow him to do it to be there longer. That's not happening either. Okay, we're
but
at
that's
4
how they're
minutes and
spinning it.
52 seconds.
Okay.
So we got to switch over to the other story
But
quickly.
hang on, and we'll switch. Russia says, great. So Ukraine goes, hey, don't you know you're spinning the same narrative that Russia does? And Russia's going, great. You're doing the same thing we do. They're
Yeah.
loving it. So they're agreeing that the story's wild.
Okay, second big story. Second big story is this, that NBC News is getting called by Trump about how he's pissed that that's the actual language that Putin is not coming to the table and he's going to put on 25 to 50% sanctions. Well, not sanctions, tariffs, which doesn't really do anything. We're not buying their stuff anyway. So why do the tariffs matter? But okay.
Well,
So
he
go
said
ahead.
they're going to tariff any nation that would purchase Russian stuff, and you would not be
Okay.
able to do
That's
business with the US. I don't believe that for a
all it
New York
is
minute.
US protectionism. That's
Correct.
it.
And okay,
It's
so
yeah,
what time are we on the clock?
almost 6 minutes.
Okay, great. So Russia and Ukraine both completely agreeing today. Media, analysts, and news coming out. This is what they both said. Why would the president of the United States make a phone call to NBC to try to negotiate through some unknown reporter by his boldness saying he's pissed off on the same organization that he often calls fake news? Is he not bold enough to get on a video camera and call out Vladimir Putin? Both Russia
It's
and
kind of an odd question, right? I mean, it's an odd. I mean, it's a good question because it's an odd way of going about doing it. Like you're going to be. Why don't you just talk in the Oval Office and have reporters come in and right? It's a weird conduit.
yes, and in this situation, we had a couple of days ago, and we did a combo video on that, Vladimir Putin on the submarine. And I mean calling it out point blank. And it could be
Hmm.
wrong, it could be right, it could be propaganda, it doesn't matter. He's in front of the camera on the nuclear sub going tick, 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 tick. Last night, I have a good video that got a lot of coverage. And if you didn't see it, you can go. It's Zelensky, the most exhausted I have seen him. I voiced it over. He's visibly exhausted, and Ukraine
Hmm.
being demolished with shaheeds every day. And he point blank says, it's time for the USA to respond now. And
Yeah.
if you put your bets on diplomacy, how's that working out for you?
So Trump's in a weird spot, right? He's the only one who actually wants this peace deal. Putin doesn't want it. Zelensky doesn't want it, but it's going to make Trump look bad if he can't get one because he's been saying he could do it all along. So, yeah, pissed at Putin? Maybe. We'll see if he actually zags. I don't know. I've been saying the zigzag theory. Maybe he'll zig, maybe he'll zag. Well, we'll find out if he's actually willing to zag. But this was a weird thing calling that reporter rather than doing it the way that he normally does this. Okay, we're at 8 minutes. What else do you have?
Well, let's just be honest. He also called NBC. So it's just you have put a point out there where Russia and Ukraine are actually agreeing on something. Now, there was a third message that went out today from Donald Trump, and that was, and I want the world to know this because Russia responded to this, not Iran. I mean, not Ukraine, but the message is about Iran. If you do not stop, there is an unbelievable bombing coming your way. I started seeing that last night from Mossad, and then today, Trump actually talked about that. Now, Russia has responded in their media and their propaganda going, okay, you're threatening Putin, and now you're threatening our friend Iran with massive bombing on the same day. Wrong narrative. So there is a lot that has happened on this Sunday.
And that's while it's also coming out a leaked report that I talked about in my 8 big stories about how China and Taiwan are the only focus. Everything else is secondary, but yet he's saying that on this day.
Yeah, very
It's very
interesting.
strange.
That was coming out from Hegseth and Defense that China and Taiwan's the priority. There's a lot going on, but I can tell you this with President Trump calling a reporter at NBC, making this bold of a statement with using the word pissed, but still Putin's my friend. Russia is loving it because it puts Putin in the place of power. Ukraine is
Mhm.
agreeing that it was wrong, but it also
20
puts
seconds.
Putin in the place of power. It was a bad move today, in my opinion, for Donald J. Trump.
If nothing else, it was very strange, as is this 10 minutes, which we have 10 seconds. You have the last 10 seconds,
I would
8
just like to
seconds.
say thank you, everybody, for supporting us. And this is going to be an incredible week as we continue to stand for truth and justice.